marriage. It's one of the oldest traditions shared by millions of couples around the world. Weddings take on many shapes and sizes and are always evolving. American weddings paint a familiar picture: a white dress, an exchange of vows, a bouquet toss, all at a ceremony traditionally paid for by the family of the bride. But that tradition is changing. The average American wedding costs nearly $39,000, and a growing number of newlyweds-to-be are relying less on their families to pay for their dream ceremonies and are instead choosing to go into debt. These young couples, dreaming of Instagrammable wedding venues, cigar bars, candy buffets, photo booths, and the like, are now spawning a new breed of personal debt championed by Silicon Valley tech startups. According to experts, wedding loans are more of a PR play rather than a new type of loan. They are simply unsecured personal loans rebranded to attract new borrowers, especially those who are in their 20s and 30s. But fintech lenders say they are issuing double the amount of wedding-branded loans in 2019 than the same period the year prior, promising fast and easy payments directly to your bank account. Online lender Earnest, which also issues loans for vacations and home improvement projects, uses the tagline, "Inspired by Pinterest, make it happen with low interest," to market its wedding loans, while Prosper offers couples engagement ring financing and extra cash for their honeymoon. Upstart promotes its use of artificial intelligence and machine learning to measure nearly 1,500 signals that determine an applicant's ability to pay back a loan. The company says education, area of study, and job history are all taken into consideration when evaluating applicants. Upstart co-founder Paul Gu says that these innovations enable them to loan to first-time borrowers without well-established credit histories.
I mean, when we look at our wedding loan borrowers, their most common length of credit history is only 5 years. For most lenders, that's a really short amount of time. Lenders typically looking for 8, 9, 10 plus years of credit history to make a determination of whether someone's a good credit risk. And if you've got a 670 credit score, only 5 years of credit history, it's going to be pretty hard to get a low interest rate loan or credit card from anybody. And I think that certainly is part of the appeal for Upstart. I think that's the problem we're trying to solve in the world.
The average wedding loan Upstart grants is $11,000 for either a 3, 5, or 7-year term. The annual percentage rate, which is the rate charged for borrowing and represents the yearly cost of the loan, can fluctuate between as low as 5% all the way up to nearly 36%, depending on the applicant. Upstart's average wedding borrower is 28 years old, and Gu notes that in Upstart's case, they're 20% less likely to default than those who take out other types of loans. He also adds that online loan providers can offer lower interest rates than credit cards, making fintech funds a superior choice. Raquel Patino and Yusuk Ramirez are a couple who live in San Diego and turned to Upstart for a $20,000 loan to help fund their wedding this fall, which they expect to cost near $30,000. They have an APR of just over 20% for a 5-year term, with a minimum monthly payment near $530. They met in 2013 while serving in the Navy and began dating 2 years ago. Last October, Patino proposed to Ramirez, and now the couple are planning a wedding to match their elaborate engagement.
That night, I had a mariachi group come, and I had a bouquet of roses. Yeah. And in the middle was a gold rose, but it was the actual box for the ring.
Like out of nowhere, I see like this mariachi group out there, and she's like just singing, serenading pretty much, and that's how it happened.
But experts worry that the efficiency and ease these companies promise could become more of a burden than a benefit as Americans become swamped with debt. In the first quarter of 2019, total household debt breached $13.6 trillion. But the growing reliance on unsecured personal loans is not exclusive to weddings. According to TransUnion, the market for personal loans hit an all-time high in 2018 after growing to $138 billion, with $21 billion added that year alone, indicating that an increase in wedding loans may just be a symptom of a much larger problem. Fintech companies like Upstart, Prosper, and Earnest led the charge by offering loans that don't require assets or personal property as payment if a borrower defaults. Fintech companies issued 38% of all U.S. personal loans in 2018. Mitch Hockenberry, a certified financial planner, says the lender's reasons for targeting younger borrowers may be less than altruistic.
And so why they're targeting the younger guys and gals is because what they're looking at is to simply say, that generation is much more okay with just working on payment plans. Instead of having to take out this big dollar amount of, say, $30,000 from your savings account and hand it over to somebody, that's a hard pill to swallow. But they're used to paying for their food coming through Grubhub. They're used to getting into an Uber and paying, that route. They're used to all these little quick payments.
Hockenberry also points out that regardless of why you take out the loan in the first place, one of the most common sources of arguments in marriage originates with money and bills. So starting off your marriage in debt just invites future arguments. While the money may be easier to borrow, many couples have a hard time calculating just how much money they need. In 2009, the average cost per guest in the United States was $194, but in 2018 it surged to $258, a near 33% increase. Research from online wedding marketplace WeddingWire indicates couples aren't well prepared for just how expensive a wedding can be. The average budget surveyed couples allotted toward their wedding was $16,000, but in reality, the price tag ended up being closer to $30,000. According to WeddingWire, roughly half of couples spend more than planned. So what causes such large budget discrepancies? Jeffra Trumpauer, WeddingWire Senior Creative Director, says one of the main reasons is that couples don't realize the cost of providing personalized experiences.
Couples really want to provide a really good experience for their guests. And what that means is that they're amplifying the details throughout their wedding. So then your per guest head count increases, right? So it could be interactive food stations, personalized favors like cigar bars or other type of interactive experiences actually at the wedding. There's additional things too where couples are really seeing so much more inspiration around them and more things that they actually want to utilize for their personal approach to the wedding. And that's increasing the cost as well.
Lauren Kay, executive editor at The Knot, notes that where you get married can also make or break your budget.
So the most expensive place to get married in the U.S. is Manhattan. It'll cost you almost $97,000 on average. And the least expensive place is Idaho, and that comes in closer to $16,000.
New York, Boston, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco all ranked amongst the highest priced cities in the country to host your special day in 2018. Couples shelled out most of their money on the reception venue with an average cost above $15,000, engagement rings, live music, and videographers and photographers, which can cost couples over $5,000 together. Once all said and done, couples spend an additional $4,500 on average on their honeymoon.
I think a lot of couples are looking to have a unique wedding that really personalizes their relationship and their love story. And they don't want to do the same thing that their friends have done. So they're looking to totally unique venues like boathouses or barns or even art museums. And sometimes that does add to the cost, and sometimes you can snag a deal. It all depends on where you're getting married in the country. The time of year plays a big role. If you want a Saturday versus a Friday night, even the season can help dictate the cost. But venues are generally one of the most expensive decisions you'll make because they often include your catering.
In 2019, millennials dished out a considerable amount more than their predecessors, spending $10,000 more on their weddings than Gen X couples. The increase in cost, along with the continuing trend of couples marrying later in life, has also changed who's responsible for paying the bill. The U.S. Census Bureau found that the median age of marrying couples increased to nearly 29 years old in 2018. This is largely due to couples prioritizing education, careers, and travel before tying the knot. And the increase in age may explain why weddings are paid for differently and getting more expensive.
50% of parents are still contributing to the wedding, and 50% of couples say they are. But we do think that that's because the age is older, right? So you have more financial ability to pay for more of that, whereas if you take it back to even 10, 15, 20 years ago, people were in their early 20s getting married. They didn't have a lot of funding to do that, so they had to turn to their parents.
But for couples like Patino and Ramirez, sometimes the entire cost of the wedding has to come out of their pockets.
We didn't want to ask for our families, really, honestly, because we're two women and not a lot of family members tend to take it as serious as any other regular wedding.
The couple acknowledges some would advise against taking out a $20,000 loan for just one day, but they have a plan to tighten up their budget to pay it off completely in 2 years. This is a sacrifice that they are willing to make. But before you take out a $30,000 loan, there may be steps you can take to prevent overspending.
So my advice is to sit down with your partner and say, what are the 3 things we cannot live without? Is that a band? Is it the location? Is it the number of people we're inviting? So literally those top 3, and agree on that, and literally write it down, like put it on your refrigerator, on the wall, and stick to it.
Financial advisors agree. Personal loans can be used wisely, especially when used toward purchases that are important to you. But they also agree that the decision to use one and your plan to pay it back is a conversation both you and your partner need to have before the special day.
Invest in you. Ready, set, grow. CNBC and Acorns.